public lecture where I'm telling about 1,000 or so people turned up at the Nkrumah Hall. It's in Nigeria. Now, the problem was even that I knew in my heart of heart I would not give it in English. I knew no matter, even have to crawl or do something, there's no way I was going to Tanzania and give a public lecture in English, right? So I cheated a little bit, I have to confess. I wrote my speech in English, and I got Ablatif Abdallah to translate for me. So I knew the translate part of my speech was going to be very good in Kiswahili. But I got enough Kiswahili to be able to field questions in Kiswahili. So one of the greatest, very meaningful memories of my life really is giving that public speech. Oh, you're coming to help me. Public speech in Kiswahili. And then being able to field questions for half an hour in Kiswahili. And my acceptance speech where everything, the entire degree ceremony, even when they're talking about science and technology, everything was conducted in Kiswahili. It was the first time. And I'm 77 years, right? No, I'm not so young as you. 77 years that I had ever been in an institution where everything was conducted in an African language. It was really incredible because it showed me what could be done. You know, it showed me, yeah, it can be done. Why? Because it's been done in Tanzania. It can be done because it was also done in pre-colonial Africa. And that is what I'm talking about at the symposium. Because those who built the wonderful pyramids, or Zimbabwe, they were Africans and they were not speaking English when they are making those pyramids, were they? Right? They must have been speaking African languages anyway. However, the question of liberal is, we're talking about the structural change in society, and the people who can only bring about that sort of changes are the regular Tanzanian. Of course, we struggle, I presume, right? But this assumption that a middle progress consists in a closet middle class, that it is a tri-middle class, it's okay. In Kenya, I can tell you now, I know this, you know my work. In Kenya, it's wonderful when you put the roads, everything, the skyscrapers. And if you look at Kenya only through the skyscrapers, you miss everything. Because the reality for every skyscraper, there are 10 or 1,000, shafts and so on. So the gap between the close middle class in terms of wealth and power and the regular people actually widening and deepening. And then we're told that's progress, right? There used to be a time when we thought of people as the basis of achievement and so on, but now there's about the middle class. What about below the middle class? So that's another struggle altogether. But language is part of it. It's not the answer. As I told you, among the Gikuyu, even Jehovah's Witnesses are now working in the Gikuyu language. The Bible is in Gikuyu also, right? So it's not, but it's a necessary step, okay? And to African people in America or Caribbean, first to everybody, I will say, your starting point is your starting point. It's as simple as if I want to travel from here to my friend over there, what do? I don't jump and start from where he is to reach him. I start from here. I what? They want them. You see my son here when he's playing the kid who is 2 years, 3 years old. And he's teaching her to play golf. When they're walking, it's very wonderful. But when she started learning how to walk, you know what she did? When she'll take one step, and when she could do it, then she would take another one. Another day she took a few. But she always kept on looking back at him. Okay? As long as she was aware where he was, she could go very far. So she has very long hair. You know what he did once? She put out her hand, and she thought her hair was his hand. So she actually walked around. She was a long distance until she discovered, oh, right? So what I'm trying to say is that wherever we are, that's your base. You know, whatever language you start with. Okay. If it's the languages which are developed here in America or in Haiti, that's also a very important starting point. But even people here have been educated to think that there's a contradiction between a mastery of the language and register of power with running away from those community languages. Right. We think of them, in the Ebonics, we think of it as somehow a lower rung on the same ladder to a standardized English heaven, right? And it's not true. It's just another system. But at the same time, let me say this, and I don't make myself very clear. Whatever is the language of power, you have to master it also. Please, I'm not telling you to abandon the language of whichever it is, right? And register power. We have to master them, but there's no contradiction in mastering the language of power, whatever it is, and also the other languages as well. Okay? So, whatever language I have, will have it in my starting point. It's what you do with those languages. If I had a policy myself, I would say every African person, no matter where he is, she is, start with what you have. But I would imagine that if you had to do a language other than the ones you have, then I would recommend probably one African language. Any. And what language does, quite frankly, you see some of the African Americans or Caribbean people who have gone to settle in Tanzania or other places, like knowing Kiswahili opens a completely new kind of spiritual relationship to the continent and oneself, right? So that's what I would recommend. But I will not say that I must give up the language of power, this one or whatever. I mean, no. That's your starting, is the linkages you make with your starting point. Whatever you are, that's your starting. I say the same thing about color or things like that. You know, whatever color you're born, that's your starting point. It's not a moral statement. Whether you're white or black, it's not a moral statement, right? It's just a fact, correct? It's not a, it's a fact, right? It's what you do with that fact, okay? There's nothing morally higher or lower, having this color or that color and so on. Is actually what you do with it, okay? That's why morality comes in, not in a fact of blackness or the fact of whiteness or the fact of any other shade of color. Right? I shall be talking more about that on further day. And lastly, Kikuyu parents, all African parents on the whole round is a problem. I've seen African middle class in Kenya, for instance, even within Kenya, they are not only proud of the fact that their children master English, but sometimes they're more proud of the fact that they're ignorant of their languages. I mean, and they'll display them. You know, if the children are playing around, they'll call them in to get the message to say something in Kikuyu to them. And of course, they will not say anything. And they will, oh my God, you know our children. they don't, you don't want children. They don't speak our languages, I mean, they say it, but they're actually very proud. Okay, so they bring them forth, display their ignorance. It's supposed to be an achievement that they cannot speak their own language, right? It's not like you call him or her, you say she can speak Yoruba. But wait a minute, you mean she can also speak English and Spanish and this and that and that? That's wonderful, because we give you another formula. If you know all the language of the world and you don't know your community's language, that is enslavement. Okay? If you know your community's language, then add all the languages of the world, that is empowerment. Right? So the choice is between enslavement and empowerment. There's nothing wrong in knowing English and French and Portuguese and Spanish. In fact, habla español. Okay? Jambo. Jambo. See? Right? Jambo. Gracias. Right? And by the way, I've also been reading about the history of Spanish language. It's got another history. I don't want to go into that right now. Okay? So, what I'm saying, parents should make a conscious effort, whatever you are. If you're in America, that's your starting point. They have to know the language or the environment, English, but you don't even have to teach them English at your home, because they'll get it anyway for the environment. So your job is to try to speak to them in Gikuyu or Yoruba and so on. English they'll get no matter what you do. Nyambura here came from Finland. She speaks Finnish perfectly, but now she speaks English fluently. That Nyambura over there. Okay? So kids you don't have, but parents, I say, me, you, we are more happy that they are not speaking our own language, really. That's the problem. Because there's no reason why I cannot speak to them in Gikuyu, right, and let them learn in any way. They're going to do it through television, anyway, or through the environment, playground. There's sort of an English language all around them. So my effort should be the other way around, correct? Yeah. And I think we diaspora, we have also a role to play in that. When my daughter, Wajiko here, she's the author of The Fall of Saints. Wajiko, stand up. She tells me that when she was living in Helsinki, at the director of the Helsinki African Film Festival, she go with her daughter, and she naturally speaks to her in Gikuyu. Her father speaks to her in English or Finnish. She speaks to her in Gikuyu. And other Africans who are horrified about this. Why are you doing this? Why are you damaging your child? Right? But she is not damaging her child. She's adding power to her and so on. So there's something which we can do wherever we are. Not saying whatever we do the best linkages with what we have, right? Whatever you have is your starting point, is what you do with your starting point. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose. This is honestly just really moving, because we're doing this at Kennesaw. This is our community, and you all are here, riveted like me and the rest of us. Every word. We didn't break out an hour ago and look for something quote unquote more important. This is Africana Studies, and we're not just studying scholarship, but we're really thinking how do we make the world better. I mean, we're engaged. This is something really powerful, and I just wanted to reflect on that briefly. Now let me go back to organizing. So I would like to ask our elders and our distinguished guests, please start the line on this side. Maybe Horace, if you can just raise your hand. That's where we'll start the line, but also Horace is our chef and organizer.